Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. The fifth of the 13 principles of faith in our Back to Basics course over here is as follows. Maimonides states, the imperative to worship God exclusively and no foreign false gods. It's a heavy one, seemingly very easy, but we're going to go into it a little bit from a couple of different aspects, and it gets a little more complicated and personal. So here's the story. Number one, used to be, of course, in the early years, soon after creation, people really, whenever, didn't really know what was up, what was down. The sun is a god, the moon is a god, the stars are a god, the tree is a god. Setting up an idol is a god, making some type of ceramic, that could be a god. And people would pray to all types of things. Basically, Judaism came along and said, hey, wait a second, guys. This is not right. This is not true. This is false. This is a distraction from the real thing. And Abraham was the one who really set the record straight as to what God's all about. And it was a totally foreign concept. But part of the purpose of God giving us the Torah Mount Sinai was that the Jewish people should really be a light amongst the nations in terms of teaching this concept of God, a monotheistic concept of God, a God that it can't be limited to an object, as great as it might be, even the sun or the stars. And beyond that is really united behind all of them and the force behind all of them. And believe it or not, Judaism has really very much succeeded in that, because the God of Christianity and the God of Islam is also the God of Abraham. And billions of people throughout history and throughout the world are aware of this belief in God and follow it. So we're dealing with a belief system here that says all the physical world is a creation of this God. A God, as we spoke about before, is invested in this physical world, but is not, so to say, caught by it, not limited by it. And we can't pray to something that God created and say that we're praying to God, because that doesn't make any sense, and it's ridiculous, and it's false, and it cuts us off. And it's a foreign God. It's setting something up as a God that really isn't a God. So today, it's widespread to believe that, okay, this God that we're talking about, this is a God that's a oneness that permeates everything, that is beyond world, before the world came into being, will be around long after the world is around, and is a self-standing existence of its own. Now, let's take it one step further, though. And this is where it gets a little difficult. So this is the prohibition against idol worship, not bowing down to any type of idols. So a person might say, hey, wait a second, we don't have idols today. It's really not relevant at all. And okay, if Maimonides wants to talk about that, great, but it doesn't really touch me on a personal level. But let's hold on a second. What does it really mean? It means that we're not supposed to bow down to anything besides that one God, that one force. Now, let's ask ourselves a question. Now, let's look very generally in our society. Does our society bow down to anything, so to say? And I don't mean physically bow down, but I mean in the sense that we give credence to things that are, so to say, let's say, absolutes that take on importance in our life. Now, in one sense, we feel that we feel that ourselves, that we really make our own success, that we create our own progress and make things happen for ourselves. We feel sometimes, some people feel that their car is like, that's their life. That's what they're consumed by. That's anything that has to do with my car is tops on the line. Or it could be money. It could be my phone. Unfortunately, it could be something more serious where a person has an addiction, whatever type of addiction that might be. Or a person is literally enslaved and bowing down to that one force in their life. So the question we all have to ask ourselves really is, do I allow myself to be distracted by foreign gods? And here I'm talking about gods, let's say, with a small g, where we really bend ourselves. Maybe we bend our values or our principles, our morals, for some foreign god that really is not us. And we know it. And we know it at the time that we're bending it, that's not us. But nevertheless, it's a very, very vulnerable part of our human makeup to be able to, number one, perhaps rationalize, and number two, to just go ahead and do something and feel like it really doesn't hurt and it's not going to cut me off from my Jewish God or the one God or my monotheistic belief. But for all practical purposes, it's a good thing to stop and think about and figure out, how do I bow down to things besides the high moral principles of who I am, what I know I should be, what I know I can be, and become somebody perhaps a little foreign than what I want to be. So we'll put that on our pipe and smoke it, and have a good rest of the day and enjoy. Hope that gives you some food for thought to be able to make the day and ourselves a better person and a better day. Shalom.